Good morning, dear students. How are all of you? Welcome to the literature class. And today's topic is Chapter 5, Mullah Nasreddin and the Nail. You must have heard about the stories of Mullah Nasreddin. Mullah Nasreddin was a Persian priest, a Sufi, who was leading a very miserable life. And the stories of Nasreddin are famous for the moral value that they convey. Whenever Mullah Nasreddin faces a difficulty in life, he would use his common sense, practical wisdom to resolve the problem. That is the beauty of Nasreddin stories. We have got one fine example of Mullah Nasreddin that also conveys a very good moral value to us. Mullah Nasreddin was a Persian philosopher, Sufi and wise man. The stories of Nasreddin are remarkable for their subtle humor and presence of mind. Nasreddin was a poor Persian priest who was leading a very miserable life. And Mullah Nasreddin was not much interested in materialistic comfort and luxuries. Then his life was completely involved into spiritual pursuits. But he didn't know how to gather money for his livelihood. So debt accumulated. Now Nasreddin doesn't have an option to get enough money to pay back his debt. So he was forced to sell his ancestral house due to the accumulated debt that he had to pay back. He has a cunning neighbor. Okay, his neighbor, he took advantage of this situation. He offered Nasreddin a very pitiful sum for the house. Nasreddin accepted it, and he told that there was an agreement in the sale contract. If the neighbor was willing to accept that contract, Mullah was ready to sell the house to him. There was a nail in the living room of Mullah's house that his father had not been able to hammer before he died. He requested the neighbor to allow him to ownership of the nail. The greedy neighbor accepted that contract and signed the sale contract. A few days later, Nasreddin came to worship the nail and then hung his turban on it. The neighbor got irritated. He asked him, "Why are you leaving it in my house?" But Nasreddin replied, "It's your house, but the nail belongs to me." After 2 weeks, Nasreddin appeared again. At that time, neighbor asked, "Again you have come? Oh, I think you have come here to take your turban, right, Nasreddin?" Mullah replied with a smile, "No, dear friend, I came to worship my nail." He bowed before the nail and hung a scarf on the nail along with his turban. A week later, Mullah Nasreddin returned. This time, he left his coat on the nail along with his scarf and turban. The neighbor's wife became very angry. And she became upset seeing this. She started upbraiding her husband. "See, look at the way this man is behaving here. This man is taking advantage of our kindness. No, I think he is taking advantage of your weakness." The unhappy neighbor said, "We agreed that Mullah can do whatever he wants with his nail. That was a deal. But don't worry, the nail is full now." Children, do you remember what are the articles that Mullah has hung on the nail? His turban, scarf and his coat. The next day itself, Mullah showed up again. With a benign smile, Nasreddin entered the house, dragging behind him a bag full of cow dung. As he was about to hang it on his nail, the neighbor's wife, she turned red in rage and she screamed at her husband, "Get that thing out of my house or I'm going to leave you now itself." The neighbor requested the village elders to help him. to get rid of Nasreddin's frequent visits. When the elders saw the contract, they supported Mullah. Finally, the frustrated neighbor sold the house back to Mullah at a measly price, at a lower price. The clever Nasreddin moved back home, pleased at having made a tidy sum of money. As I told you, children, Mullah's stories are remarkable and they are much appreciated with the rich moral values that it conveys. And here Mullah has confronted a problem that we discussed in the class, and he has resolved the problem using his practical sense and his common sense without shedding a word, harsh word, without any kind of arguments, bargaining, request, nothing. Without any physical, mental harm to anyone, right? With his practical sense, he has tackled down that problem. This is the moral that this story conveys. Now look at the mind map of the lesson. Here is the mind map of the topic, Mullah Nasreddin and the nail. As I told you, this is the Persian folklore. Mullah Nasreddin was a Persian priest who was leading a very miserable life. Nasreddin was forced to sell out his ancestral house due to debt. The cunning neighbor offered a less amount of money for the house. Nasreddin accepted that offer, but on one condition, that he had to allow Nasreddin to worship the nail which was fixed by his father in the living room of the house. Mullah Nasreddin visited the house frequently to worship his nail and hung many things over there, like his hat. One day he hung his scarf there, another day his coat, etc. And one day he came with a bag full of cow dung. As he was about to hang it on the nail, his wife protested vehemently and she told, okay, it's not allowed here, please get that thing out of the house, otherwise I am going to leave the house forever. Now the family is in a fix. Mullah's visits disturbed the family. They sought the elders' help to get rid of Mullah's frequent visits. The elders of the village supported Mullah's contract because it has clearly given the consent to Mullah to worship his nail at any point of time. But how the nail has to be worshipped is not mentioned anywhere in the contract. And at the end of the story, the family of the neighbor was forced to leave the house forever, and Mullah happily got his house back with a tidy sum of amount, with a pretty fair, good deal of money. This is the mind map of the story. All of you children, just go through the story one more time and try to read more stories like Birbal stories, Mullah Nasreddin stories, Tenali Raman stories that convey very deep, beautiful, human philosophy and value that can be imbibed in our life. Thank you for watching. God bless you.